On this episode of Common Mystics, an accident on Chappaquiddick Island on a dark night in July 1969 would forever alter the lives of those involved and leave a lasting mark on American history. I'm Jennifer James.
I'm Jill Stanley.
We're psychics.
We're sisters.
We are Common Mystics. We find extraordinary stories in ordinary places. And today's story is a well-known story that comes to you from Chappaquiddick Island in Edgerton, Massachusetts.
I want to be a better person, and part of that is trying to curb my impulse to swear.
Yeah.
So I promised myself, I'm like, I'm not going to, why do I have to swear so much on these episodes? I want it to be appealing to boomers and Gen Xers and
keep it classy.
The whole,
keep it classy.
Why? I shouldn't have to swear. And then you write this. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to try my best.
Well, I just told you off air that 80% of my job on Common Mystics is just setting you up. And I feel like this outline is a setup for Jill. So I want you to go off. Yes, curb the language, but keep that passion. That's why our listeners come here.
I was literally talking to Jennifer off air right now, and she's like, okay, are you ready to record this? And I'm like, wow. She's like, bring that energy.
This is gold. This is gold.
This is the most infuriating piece of work that I've seen in a while, but I'm here for it. Come on, Jen. Where were we? Let's set us up.
Well, we were in New England at the time.
Love it.
We were leaving New Bedford, Massachusetts, and we headed to Cape Cod.
We sure did. And when we were headed to Cape Cod, you were like...
Well, we had our intention, of course.
Yes. What was our intention?
Which was for the spirits to lead us to a verifiable story previously unknown to us that allowed us to give voice to the voiceless.
But Jennifer, this story is well-known AF.
Yeah. And actually, I had some knowledge about this story too. But I still believe that we were supposed to talk about it. So let's talk about why.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. So we're in the car. We're headed towards Cape Cod.
Yes.
But for some reason, I was like, isn't that where like the Kennedys lived? I was like, wait a second. Wait, what?
So we asked Siri, take us to the Kennedy compound, half joking, like thinking Siri's going to be like, I cannot take you to the Kennedy compound. But
that is illegal for you to go to the Kennedy compound or breathe in the same air. And I was like, just send us there, Siri. And lo and behold,
Siri led us right there. It's crazy.
Like literally, I was in shock. So we get to a cul-de-sac in a beautiful neighborhood. Just Texas must be off the rocker. That you are not like allowed to go in unless you live there or are a guest or been invited. So basically...
And to be honest, we only knew there was a cul-de-sac because of Google Maps. Like you couldn't get close to this said cul-de-sac. Instead, there were signs like do not enter, cameras pointed at you, and lots of like, it is illegal to go this way.
What's funny is Jennifer is a bad liar. So she's freaking out and she's like, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. Well, and I'm like, Jennifer, if you act like you don't belong here, you are going to bring us attention. I'm like, you need to have your head up high. Like we belong here. We were invited here. We're just looking for the place. Right.
Right. Well, in a sense, we were invited by spirit, I guess. But it's not that I am a bad liar. It's that I'm a rule follower. And it was very clear the rules were against. The rules were against me, you, us being there. Very clearly.
Well, and the signs were so classy, like well done. Yes. They weren't like no trespassing, like hillbilly signs. They were like carved in wood and etched. Like, please do not infringe on our private rich property here. And we're like, I'm sorry, side. You're too pretty for me to take seriously.
So you found a way around it, of course, as always.
That's what I do.
So instead of going through the front past all the cameras and the signs and, probably, bodyguards, instead you found this little beach. So we went around the back way. There's this little beach. It says no parking. I don't remember it saying it was a private beach. I do not. It was a big,
it literally said no parking.
It did.
But
we didn't park.
Technically,
we didn't park.
The car was idling. If we want, it was not parked. It was not idling. And just a couple of girls idling.
Right. And to be completely fair, we weren't the only people doing the same thing. There were other idling cars there just looking at the shore, right?
Right.
But you were hell-bent on getting out and looking at the property from the shore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was. And I'll tell you why. Because we were that close to the Kennedy compound. There's absolutely no way in the HE double hockey sticks that I drove all the way to Cape Cod and not going to get out and see the Kennedy compound. So I sniffed around. I got out. I'm like, Jennifer, there it is. I'm like, I swear to God, Jennifer, there it is right there. I swear to God, Jennifer, you have to go see it, Jennifer. And I was taking pictures like from afar.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's totally it.
Yeah.
So then you...
Yeah. I would not get out of the car. And you bullied me.
She would not get out of the car.
I know. I did not want to. I was really scared. Looking back, I was unreasonably terrified that
it was annoying
that the Kennedys would like arrest me or like, do something to me, or you know what I mean? Like I was really scared. I did not want to get out of the car. You made me get out of the car. You bullied me. We sat there for several minutes of you like browbeating me until I was finally like, this is not going to stop unless I walk on this beach. So that's fair, right?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I would even take it a step further and be like, if you do not get out of this car, I'm going to drag your ass, and it's going to be very embarrassing, to the beach so you can see the Kennedy compound.
Yes, that's more accurate. Anyway, so I did not want that sort of a scene. I got out of the car, and you were so sure that was the main house that we were looking at. And I wasn't so sure. But then, we got back in the car and you found historical photographs with JFK and his siblings on that very beach with that same house in the background. So that was really cool. And in the end, I guess I'm grateful that I did get out of the car. Well, you were picking up on some things too. What were you picking up on?
Well, I remember feeling that there was a scandal around the Kennedys, but it felt like a woman scandal. It felt like our story was focused around a woman.
And as you were saying this in the car, I happened to look up and see that we were on Chappaquiddick, like street or road. Like Chappaquiddick was in the name. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I wrote that down because I had some background knowledge about Chappaquiddick. I spelled it completely wrong in the notes. I spelled it like Chad acquit it, like your husband, Chad acquit it.
Chad acquit it.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Chad acquit it.
Yeah, that's how he spelled it. But anyway, I thought it was really interesting. You said scandal. I look out the window. I see that name, so I write it down. So even though I had some prior knowledge.
And I can't read that name.
No,
I can't read that name. So even if I saw the sign, there in no world did I read that word and be like, Chappaquiddick. I would have been like, Chappaquiddick.
Right. You would have just crowed like a rooster is what I'm hearing.
That's correct. That's accurate.
Okay. All right.
So, Jennifer.
Yeah.
What is Chappaquiddick? What is the scandal that you refer to?
Chappaquiddick Island is a really tiny island that's located off the eastern end of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. Now, Jill, you've heard of Martha's Vineyard.
Absolutely. That's where Rory was getting married the night JFK Jr. died.
Exactly. Martha's Vineyard is where the Kennedy family has vacationed for decades. They have property on Martha's Vineyard. They might own the entire island. I'm not sure. But Chappaquiddick Island is a part of the town of Edgartown, or Edgerton, and is known for its beautiful landscapes, its beautiful beaches, its conservation areas, and its overall natural beauty. It's really small, Jill.
It's crazy small, but I just want you guys to picture this. This is an island off an island.
Right.
So think of that. So Martha's Vineyard is a little baby island off of Hyannisport. And then next to the little baby island, there's another tiny baby island.
Right. A preemie
baby island. Absolutely.
6 square miles total. And the length is only 5 miles. Like you could walk across this entire island.
A couple of times
if you wanted to. And also it's remote. It's quaint. It's the type of place where all the neighbors know each other and people leave their doors unlocked and nothing bad ever happens. And life is just slow and relaxed and everyone's on vacation all the time.
Gosh, you should be a real estate agent there. My goodness. I'm ready. Let's look at some real estate.
We can't afford that.
Yeah.
we got to look somewhere else.
They would escort us off. They would be like, this isn't even, it's like when you're a kid pretending to go shopping in the grocery store and you like have all the stuff in the cart and they're like, honey, you're just, they would turn you away. They would be like, oh, you poor dears, here's a nickel.
Right. Okay. But Jill, this picturesque island was unfortunately the setting for a tragic event that occurred on July 18th, 1969 during a party of all things. A party for a group of 6 women who were known as the Boiler Room Girls.
Oh, that is not a flattering name. Who are these women?
Well, the Boiler Room Girls refers to a group of young women who had worked on the 1968 U.S. presidential campaign for candidate Robert Kennedy.
I know him.
Tell me why. What do you know about him?
Well, I know that he is the younger brother to JFK, who was assassinated in 1965, and then being the next oldest brother in line, who was also a part of JFK's administration, was Bobby or Robert Kennedy. So he ran a few years later for president.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the Boiler Room Girls were a part of Bobby Kennedy's campaign. See, they earned that nickname because of their terrible working conditions, apparently. They worked in a windowless little room in the basement of Kennedy's campaign headquarters, which resembled a boiler room.
So I feel like there should be some government oversight in how you treat employees. Like a window would be nice. Were
like
they
OSHA?
Imprisoned here?
Yeah. Why didn't anyone call OSHA? Yeah, no, this pisses me off that they call them the Boiler Room Girls. Number one, they're opening
because they know it sucks.
They know it sucks. They're openly acknowledging, that it sucks, and it's kind of wink, wink. You have a shitty job, but you're going to do it anyway because you believe in the politics and you care about Bobby Kennedy. And also, I don't want to be this person, but girls, they weren't girls. They were women.
Women.
They were women,
they were.
Damn it. No, seriously, like that pisses me off. Not only are they calling them girls, but also girls who work in shitty positions. So basically, they have no power in the situation is what you're saying.
Exactly. And I want to say this. These women worked on pivotal speeches and did research on the opposing candidates. So like these were pivotal people to the campaign. They were part of the close circle. So to call them the Boiler Room Girls is like double shitty, right? Because you're agree. You have like the worst, you are pivotal. You are amazing at what you do. That's why you're close to this campaign in this way. And yet you are in like the trash underbelly of the operation with a windowless office and a hot room. It just is so degrading. And they were happy to do it.
And they were happy to do it.
They were happy to do it.
We're talking about the Kennedys, by the way. This is not some small presidential candidate that doesn't have deep pockets. The Kennedys could have made him an office. All right. I'm just going to say that. But they were pivotal. Or got him a window. They were pivotal not only for research, like you mentioned, but strategy, preparing briefing materials. They managed all the details, all the logistics of the entire campaign, and all the behind-the-scenes tasks that kept it running smoothly. And they worked long hours, and their job was stressful and intense, but they were extremely loyal and dedicated to Bobby Kennedy and personally invested in his politics and his vision.
His success.
Yes. So they did it for the love of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were just taken advantage of, I feel. Ugh, makes me angry.
There's a lot of feelings you're going to feel during this episode, Jennifer. And I want you to know it's okay to feel those feelings.
All right, Boiler Room Girls. So there was a party thrown for them. That's nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm confused.
All right, let me explain.
Okay. because right now where I'm at in my head right now is that we just met the Boiler Room girls who were working on RFK's campaign. But now this is 1969. RFK ain't around anymore. So what are we doing with the Boiler Girls now?
So this party, like you're right, this party on Chappaquiddick Island on July 18th, 1969 was a celebration to honor the efforts of the Boiler Room Girls. And it was sort of a reunion party. And it was actually the fourth reunion party that happened of its kind since Bobby Kennedy was assassinated a year before.
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of partying going on with the Boiler Room women. This is the fourth one. Who is throwing these parties and to what end?
Right. So that would be Edward M. Kennedy, otherwise known as Ted Kennedy.
Ted Kennedy.
Ted. Yeah, Ted Kennedy.
Ted Kennedy.
Ted.
Senator Ted Kennedy.
Senator Ted Kennedy. He was John JFK and Bobby's littlest brother. He was the youngest son of Joe and Rose Kennedy, making him a key member of the illustrious Kennedys.
I mean, the Kennedys, the reputation of the Kennedy family, I mean, goes well beyond Camelot. It's generations of well-fought politics. Like, Rose's family was in politics. Joe's family was in politics. This is an American dynasty.
Yes. Now, like you mentioned, Ted Kennedy was a senator. He was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1962. He actually filled the seat that his brother John F. Kennedy left when he was elected as president, literally stepping into his big brother's footsteps.
Wow.
And he quickly became known as a capable legislator, and he was successful as a senator. He did some wonderful things for civil rights, healthcare, and education, and his efforts contributed to landmark legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Well, thank you for your work, Ted.
Now, by the late 1960s, Ted had become a leading voice in the Democratic Party. And he was respected not only for his legislative skill, but also his charisma. He had presence.
The Kennedys do. A lot of them do.
They
Those
do.
boys are going someplace, I tell you what. But I want to tell you this. At the end of the 1960s, more than 80% of Americans not only thought that Ted Kennedy should be the next president, but they also said that they would vote for Ted Kennedy as the next president.
80%.
80% of Americans.
Wow.
Yes.
I don't think we could get 80% of Americans to agree on anything these days.
Not one thing. Not one thing.
Sounds like he was
incredible.
a shoo-in. It sounds like he was a shoo-in.
Absolutely. The future is bright for young Ted.
So, following the assassination of both of his brothers, John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, Ted was seen as the torchbearer of the entire Kennedy legacy. And there were high expectations for him to run for president and to be the president.
Within his family, not just Americans, but know his dad was all like, okay, you need to, here you are, you're the man of the family now, get up, get on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure when his dad died, so we have to be careful with that statement. But certainly that would have been part of the family culture and expectations.
I'm pretty sure he was still alive.
Well, it doesn't really matter because that expectation still would have been there whether or not old Joe was alive or not.
Old Joe, you're rude.
Are you checking?
Yeah, old Joe. He actually died that year in November.
Oh.
Like right after, like this happened in July.
Right. Oh,
Joe Kennedy.
shit.
Like,
that's even worse.
Broke your father's heart.
Now, so obviously, Ted had two older brothers who were beyond successful in politics, right? But also had tragically passed away via assassination. And so that's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? That's a lot of pressure for Ted.
I mean, I can't even imagine that type of pressure.
No.
Think about it. Like, not only like your literal brothers are such giants in American history and beloved members of American zeitgeist, but also gets shot in the head, both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you like I wouldn't go out in public. I would be like, I'm just going to be my senator. I'm not, I'm not trying to be president.
I would consider a career change personally because I don't care about power, but so Ted Kennedy, here he is, American royalty, right? He has a lot of pressure on him as the last surviving Kennedy son. And he probably has that in the back of his head that, geez, if I am successcul, I too might be the victim. Yeah, I too might be the victim of a bullet. So what does he do? What does he do? Well, he keeps partying with the boiler room women. Right. Well, okay. So Ted was in town. Let me explain.
Okay. Tell me everything.
Okay. So, rich people, they have expensive hobbies. Yeah. And one of the sports that some wealthy like to engage in is sailboat racing. And so Ted belonged to a yacht club and he was in town for a sailboat race. And so he decided to take advantage of the vacation setting and throw a get together.
The fourth of his kind, apparently.
Yeah. Now, Ted was 37 years old at the time. And his cousin, Joe Gargan, was 39 at the time. And they both planned to race Ted's sailboat in the Edgerton Yacht Club Regatta the following day.
Okay.
Now, you have to put yourself in the position of Ted because the year before, he didn't take place in the race because that's the same time that Bobby's assassination occurred in 1968. So the
June
fact,
1968.
Yeah. So the fact that he was there the following summer, that would have been a stark reminder to him that, a reminder of his brother's assassination, the fact that he's back now and didn't do the race the year earlier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. I think that if looking at it in Ted's point of view, just being on the islands, just being in Hyannisport in that area, like where your family grew up, that's a reminder that your brothers aren't there anymore. The fact that this is the year after your beloved
older
Bobby
brother
died. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot.
There's a lot of emotional responses that might be tied up in the decision to have a reunion with the Boiler Girls, the group of women who were also dedicated to Bobby Kennedy and loved him, right? And also were probably thinking about, wow, it's been 1 year since his assassination, right? So that might have been part of the reason for this reunion party. And that kind of makes sense to me.
I know, but I just feel like you should overeat your stress like everyone else does. You know what I'm saying? Like, just keep throwing sad parties. I don't know.
So they rented a secluded cottage on Chappaquiddick Island, accessible only by ferry from Edgerton on Martha's Vineyard for the weekend. And that Friday evening, July 18th, 1969, at around 8:30, Ted and his cousin Joe hosted a cookout at the cottage as a reunion for the Boiler Room Girls.
Nice, but again, kind of sad. I don't know if I would, I don't know. Think about it. If you were a Boiler Room girl a year after Robert Kennedy's death, would you go to that party?
Yeah, it'd probably be bittersweet because it would recall all the love I had. And those women, they worked such long hours. You know what I mean? They must have really formed a cohesive, tight-knit group. And I could see definitely getting together with them.
I would imagine that they, over the past year, I can imagine that they would have kept in touch. You know what I'm saying? To, come together in that way with Ted Kennedy. It feels like, I don't know, it feels weird to me. It feels off. I don't know, especially the fourth one of its kind.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It seems excessive. Why are we keep coming back here to do these things? Anyway, that's just in my, I feel like we need to move on now, Ted.
Okay.
Someone should have been
that's
Ted,
how I feel about this discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't have an older sister being like, Ted, it's time to move forward.
Right. So do you want to know who was there at the party?
Yeah, I'm good. Just kidding. Yeah. Who was invited? Who attended? Tell me everything. Give me the details.
So the guys at the party included the crew from Ted's sailboat, his cousin, Joe Gargan, and Joe's friend, Paul Markham. Paul was a former United States attorney for the state of Massachusetts. And there was also a man named John Crimmins. Now, John Crimmins was 63 years old, and he was a longtime associate of Kennedy's, and he was the chauffeur for the evening. for the
that makes
weekend.
sense.
Yeah.
You need a designated driver, especially
well,
you're out hanging out, partying. You need a designated driver.
my understanding was that Ted didn't usually drive himself. Like Ted had a driver. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're a Kennedy, you don't have to like pump gas. You don't have to drive a car.
That's just insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those were the guys that were there, including 2 other associates of Ted's. All the men were married, except for old Crimmins, the chauffeur.
He was the available bachelor on the island.
He was. But their wives were not there. They weren't invited for the Chappaquiddick weekend.
Okay, so again, and I'm sorry that I'm beating this dead horse, but this is really weird. If this was supposed to be a reunion to celebrate the efforts of the Boiler Room Girls a year after Bobby's death, you would think that more people that were a part of the campaign would have been there and not Ted's close friends and cousins. Just saying. Like, if we're going to celebrate the Boiler Room Girls and their efforts, this seems like there's only like a handful of people.
Yeah, this seems like a more like close-knit, intimate situation.
It wasn't like the campaign staff was there.
Exactly.
That's why it feels off.
This was definitely an intimate, personal get-together.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
Right. Now, the 6 Boiler Room Girls were all in their 20s. They were all single, and they all attended the party on July 18th. They were Rosemary Keogh, Esther Newberg, sisters Nance and Mary Ellen Lyons, Susan Tannenbaum, and, most notably, Mary Jo Kopechne, who, tragically, would not live to see the light of day.
Oh, gosh. Okay, tell me more about Mary Jo.
Well, Mary Jo Kopechne was born on July 26, 1940, in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. She was the only child of Joseph and Gwen Kopechne. Her mother was a homemaker, and her father was an insurance salesman. And both her grandfathers had been coal miners in Pennsylvania's coal country. She was Polish on her dad's side and was raised Catholic and attended Catholic schools all her life and an all-women's college. So she...
Good, solid, Catholic, American girl.
Working class.
Mm-hmm.
She was not on the same league with the Kennedys.
Yeah, it must have been quite an honor to be able to work with Bobby Kennedy and to be invited to this type of party.
To be invited as one of the innermost circle of the Kennedys, that must have been huge for her.
I imagine so, yeah.
Now, Mary Jo was particularly inspired by President John F. Kennedy's famous words, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." And she took those words to heart. And after graduating college, she spent a year in Montgomery, Alabama in the 1960s, working with a mission, the Mission of St. Jude, to support civil rights in Alabama.
Dangerous, dangerous job. Just saying.
Hell yeah, it was. That's really
People
brave.
People died.
Yes. Yeah, shit was happening in Alabama in the 1960s, and it would have been really brave of her. After graduating college, Mary Jo briefly worked as a school teacher teaching typing and shorthand. And I love this description of her from one of her former students. It says she was petite, a strawberry blonde with a pep in her step. She had confidence and a zest for life that was intriguing. She was humble and kind and stood firm in her beliefs. Tough, but fun in the classroom, creating speed challenges, expecting accuracy, and rewarding us generously.
I love it. That is really sweet.
I love that.
As a teacher, you want to be acknowledged and inspire, I imagine.
And I think some of the hardest things to do is be tough but fun at the same time. I love that.
Point.
But Mary Jo had a passion for politics, and in 1963, she said goodbye to teaching and moved to Washington, D.C. to work as a secretary for a Florida senator. She joined Senator Bobby Kennedy's staff a year later, and colleagues described her as intelligent, capable, and deeply committed to the causes that she supported. She had skills in organizing and managing campaign details that made her a real valuable asset to Bobby Kennedy's team. And she was extremely dedicated. There's this one anecdote about how
I love this one. Yes,
Bobby
tell me.
Kennedy was working on a speech about against the Vietnam War. And she was at the Kennedy house and she stayed overnight typing the speech along with him and his speechwriters while they all made last minute corrections. Like, that's the kind of person she was.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
On so many different levels.
I
That
know.
is incredible.
Right. And she was also social with her work community. She was a member of the office softball team and played
I love
catcher.
it. She was good at it too.
I'm sure she was. So Mary Jo stayed on Bobby's staff and supported his presidential campaign as a boiler room girl until the time of his assassination in June 1968.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, she, like the other boiler room girls, were devastated.
The country.
Were
If not
devastated.
the world.
Heartbroken after Bobby Kennedy's death. But she continued to work in politics and supported different senatorial and mayoral campaigns in the year after his death. Again, exceptionally hardworking, politically knowledgeable, and respected in her field, she really had a bright future ahead of her in politics.
So her career prospects look really good. Tell me a little bit about her social life. Like, are we getting married? Give me your girlfriends. What's going on?
As for her personal life, Mary Jo was single. She was living with two other girls in a Georgetown apartment near Washington, D.C., and she was described by people who knew her as being demure, devout, and they said that she rarely drank much.
You know, that must have been a great time in her life, just like living in Georgetown with your girlfriends, being like knowing that your career is going someplace and that you're respected in your industry as like a 20 some odd year old.
You know what?
That's a good time.
What I keep thinking right now is she was able to put the Kennedys on her resume. They were her references. There's nothing this woman couldn't do.
True that. Okay, so now think about that. That's Mary Jo. Now we're back to the incident that night. We're having a party.
Right.
We're on Chappaquiddick Island. Tell me what's going on. These are the
Okay.
players. What's happening?
So the party, Ted Kennedy's there. His guys are there. The boiler room girls are there. It's July 18th, 1969, a Friday night. It's incredibly chill. It's personal. It's a personal, warm environment. There's a cookout, and the group spent the evening socializing and eating and drinking alcohol. And all the guests seemed to be relishing the camaraderie that they had formed through their close collaboration during Bobby Kennedy's campaign. Now, they had rented the cottage for the weekend, but only two people were planning to stay there for the night. And that was Ted Kennedy's cousin, Paul, and Old Crimmins, the 63-year-old chauffeur.
So this is my question. We're on an island, off an island. So how are they getting back to their hotels if they're planning not to stay at this cottage?
So there's a ferry that goes between Martha's Vineyard and Chappaquiddick Island.
Okay.
And the rest of them planned to stay at two different hotels on the mainland. So the men booked rooms at Shiretown Inn on Martha's Vineyard, and the women booked stays at Katama Shores Motor Inn, about 2 miles south of the other hotel.
Okay. So
All right.
eventually everyone was going to pack it up except for the two dudes and head back via ferry to Martha's Vineyard.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the last ferry apparently came at midnight. But I did read that you could request other ferries if you needed them. And if you're a Kennedy and you requested a ferry, you know a ferry would have come.
Okay. So now
Yeah.
we're at the party.
Yes.
Just saying. The other people, just the two dudes are going to spend there overnight. We're partying. The last ferry leaves at midnight. We're chilling. What's going on now?
Okay. So around 11:15,
Mhm.
Ted Kennedy and Mary Jo Kopechne leave the party together.
Where are
Now,
they going?
Well, according to Ted Kennedy, Mary Jo asked him to drive her back to the ferry landing so that she could return to her hotel on Martha's Vineyard. Now,
Did Mary Jo not know that there was not only a chauffeur there, but like Ted really didn't drive himself around?
unclear. And by the way, these details have been pieced together based on various different interviews and testimonies including that of Ted Kennedy, and you will see that they are often contradictory. So, again, according to Ted, Mary Jo came to him and asked him to give her a ride to the ferry so that she could go back to her hotel on Martha's Vineyard. And Ted goes to his chauffeur because, like you just said, Ted doesn't drive his own self around. So he's like, hey, Crimmins, give me the car keys. Well, Crimmins gives him the car keys. And then Ted and Mary Jo take off in his black Oldsmobile.
It's putting Crimmins in a really awkward situation because your boss is like, hey, give me the keys. You know what I mean?
I know. What are you going to say?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Right.
Be like, here you go, sir.
And it was later revealed that Mary Jo had left her purse and her hotel key at the cottage, which kind of indicates that she may have been intending to return to the party because she didn't have the key to her hotel room, right?
Right. I mean, at this point, we're giving her the benefit of the doubt. She's partying. She forgot her purse.
Right. Okay. Also, they left without saying goodbye to anybody.
Okay, now that's different.
That's different.
That's weird. And it's then if you put it like that, then Ted asked for the keys on the DL, on the download. Must have, if no one else realized that they had gone.
Well, no, they noticed. Some people noticed that they weren't there anymore, but they didn't.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? But they didn't go around and say, hey, we're headed out.
Okay, is anyone else headed out?
Right,
it's
right.
11:15.
Does anyone else want to take this ferry? Yes.
Yeah,
we're it
headed
wasn't
out.
like that. Right.
They were just like, hey, yo.
They just slipped
keys.
out. Right.
Yeah.
They slipped out. And then after a while, people are like, hey, where's Ted and Mary Jo?
Yeah, I call that a vampire act.
Oh, is that what that's called?
Yeah, you just pull a vampire. you just dash out into the night.
God, I do that too. I hate saying goodbyes at parties. That is the most stressful thing for me.
But you do say goodbye to your good friends on the DL before you go. You walk up to the people, like your friends, and you're like, okay, I'm leaving.
Especially your host. If you're the host, Ted was the host of this party, and it's not like he was a wallflower. Like this was his thing, like being the center of attention.
That's a really good point.
So Ted and I have nothing in common in that regard.
Well, I think you're charming.
Thank you. So Ted later testified that he was driving Mary Jo to the ferry dock, but he took a wrong turn onto a road called Dyke Road.
Okay,
and it was
tell me when I can go off.
Not yet. It was just a narrow dirt road that led to a small bridge. So he took a wrong turn, he said.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm waiting. I'm being patient. Go on.
At approximately 12:45 a.m., the car drove off the unlit Dyke Bridge, which did not have any guardrails at the time, and overturned into a pond, landing upside down in the water. Ted managed to escape the submerged vehicle and swam to the shore. He stated that he repeatedly attempted to dive back into the water to rescue Mary Jo. He said he did this 7 or 8 times, but was unsuccessful. Ted said that he rested at the water's edge for about 15 minutes and then walked back to the cottage, which was about a 20-minute walk from the pond. And he passed several houses along the way, never stopping for help.
Okay. Now, I have a couple of questions for Ted.
All right, you're up.
Okay. So I took a wrong turn on a very small island that I've been going to for, 30 years. Okay, fine. Whatever. I'm partying. Whatever. Made a wrong turn. But then I drive off a bridge.
Right.
Escape a vehicle that is submerged in water.
Right.
And instead of being like, help, somebody help me, he says he tries himself to save this Mary Jo. But I want to tell you, the car at this point in the narrative is 30 feet into the pond, 6.5 feet underwater. Ted Kennedy is 6'2". Okay. So he's just underwater if he's standing up. We don't know the currents at the time. I'm not sure of the weather report, but I'm saying to me, there seems to be better options for you to do than to try to get back into the car. Get help would be one of them. If there's a house nearby, maybe with a phone or someone with like a boat or something. You see what I'm saying?
I do. But
again, the benefit of the doubt, he could have been in shock, right?
Right, exactly.
But if I'm in shock, I'm calling for help. I think I would be uncontrollably calling for help. I mean, you know me. I literally would be like a chicken without his head. Be like, help me, help me. I wouldn't just be like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I guess my point is that you can't say that you're in shock and you made bad decisions if you're stoic trying 6 or 7 times to get back there. You're either making bad decisions because you're in shock, or you're a hero and you're trying to be a hero and you're in the right space. Like, those things are contradictory to me.
Right. And I agree with you. It seems to me contradictory that he is frantically trying to save her, but then gets out and calmly walks 20 minutes past all of these people who might be able to help her.
Exactly.
It's contradictory. Like, that doesn't make sense. If you're frantically trying to save her, then you get out of the water and you continue to frantically try to save her.
Exactly.
Right, by going to the nearest house available. But that is not what he did. What do you think about the fact that the car left the party at 11:15 and drove into the pond at 12:45?
Okay, so like we already established that this is a very small island.
Yes.
Like legit small. Like we can walk. If in a car going 20 miles an hour around this island for an hour and a half, you could have been like around this island like dozens of times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing for an hour and a half?
Right, exactly. And this did come up shortly after the incident. And the exact timing of the crash remains clouded by the conflicting accounts from Ted, and also not only Ted, but a deputy sheriff who claimed to have seen his car. See, Ted claimed, like we said, that he drove half a mile north on Chappaquiddick Road towards the ferry, but mistakenly turned onto the unpaved Dyke Road close to an unpaved cemetery road.
Okay, so I want to just give you the setup because I was looking at a map today because I went down on a super rabbit hole.
Oh, tell me.
So Chappaquiddick Road, where the cottage, it's 309 Chappaquiddick Road.
Look at you.
Chappaquiddick Road swerves to the left. Okay. And then it goes towards the ferry at Chappaquiddick Point. Now, at the point where it turns left, you follow the road left. There is a small dirt road, at the time it was called Cemetery Road, that you could kind of do a little zigzag and continue on, but you are definitely on like an unpaved road. Like you're like boom, 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 boom.
Oh, okay.
Or you can make a hard right. And again, you're on Dyke Road, but you are doing the exact opposite of what the road does. Mm-hmm. And you're going the exact opposite of the ferry and Martha's Vineyard, right?
Oh.
So what he's saying is that he made a completely wrong, like it's not like, oops, I missed my turn. It's like, no, you actively made like the wrong decision right. Because the road itself will curve left.
I see.
It's not like a T intersection. It's an actual soft curve left that continues the road.
And like you had said earlier, he is familiar with this place. He has been vacationing here and on Martha's Vineyard for 30 plus years. So it's very unlikely that he would have made such a wrong turn as to not know where he was. Like that doesn't make sense.
It's like me imagining myself at 19 being drunk in Forest Park and not being able to get home. Like that's what that's equivalent. Like I grew up my entire life here.
Right. Even drunk, like, you could stumble home.
Even drunk, I will find my way home no matter what part of Forest Park I was in.
Yeah, 100%.
Hang in there, guys. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. We are so excited to unveil the first book in our series entitled Common Mystics Present Ghost on the Road Volume 1, Murders and Mysterious Deaths.
It's everything you love about common mystics and more.
It's a retelling of 10 of our favorite stories from our pod with exciting extras.
Extras like souvenirs, what we took away from the experience, and what to know if you go if you decide to travel in our footsteps.
Pre-order the Kindle edition now. All other formats of the book will be available for purchase at Amazon.com on July 1st, 2023.
Thanks, guys. Now back to the show.
So then there's the deputy sheriff. Would you like me to tell you what he saw?
Yes, but his name is Look, so it's confusing. It's like who's on first, but the deputy sheriff Look is his name.
So yeah, I'm not going to say his name because it is confusing. The deputy sheriff was out that night. You had mentioned that he was at the yacht club dance, right?
You and I had that conversation off air, but so let's cut this. Hold on.
No. Let's talk about it. He had been at the yacht club dance and left around what, Jill? 12:30, 12:40?
Yes. So Deputy Sheriff Look is at the dance. He's doing his patrols at the dance, making sure everyone's cool. Everyone's dancing's cool. Okay, I'm out. He gets in his car and now he's patrolling around Chappaquiddick Island. And he sees around 12:30 at the T intersection that I just described to you. That's not really a T intersection, but like a soft left turn. He sees an idling vehicle that looks similarly to Ted Kennedy's vehicle and also shares similar license plate numbers, almost exact, that he was able to write down. And he's like, well, why is this car just idling here? Let me go see if they need help. So he pulls over and he starts to approach the vehicle. The vehicle at that point backs in to Cemetery Road. And so now the vehicle is facing where the cottage was, right? And makes a strong left on an unpaved road that takes you to Dyke. So he's hauling ass out of there. Whoever the man in the car was with the young lady that looked like Ted Kennedy's vehicle, right?
With the same license plate number.
Yeah, basically, instead of like letting the cop come up, he does this like weird backing up.
Like he's making a
road.
3-point turn.
Exactly. And hauls like fucking hell out of there onto a dirt road. And again, we're on an island, people. Where do you think, even if you're frantic and drunk, you kind of like you can't go over a certain miles per hour on a dirt road because your car will get all do. So he's all like hauling ass on this dirt road
toward the bridge.
Toward the bridge.
And it's the deputy's statement that really establishes that true timeline, because he saw that car with the man and the woman and the license plate number that was so similar to Ted's, that people do recognize that the car likely went into that pond around 12:45, contradicting Ted's timeline and leaving a whole lot of time unaccounted for with Ted and Mary Jo alone in the car, presumably, and also indicates or suggests that Ted was speeding away from law enforcement when he mistakenly drove off that bridge.
True. And also, we should note that the car is idling at 12:30, around 12:40, just a half a mile from the cottage. Just down the street from the cottage.
Wow.
What did Ted Kennedy do next? The car, he drove off the bridge. Mary Jo's still in there. According to Ted Kennedy, he's frantic, but he's in shock. And then he walks his ass back to the cottage.
Yeah.
What happens?
Okay, he gets back to the cottage and the party is still going on. Like they're doing conga lines in the street. He walks up. He doesn't sound an alarm. He doesn't tell everybody what. No, he doesn't sound an alarm. He goes quietly to his cousin, Joe, and Paul, who happens, all three are attorneys, right? He goes to them and he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. And then they go and sit in a rented Plymouth in the driveway. And he tells them what happened. Now, Joe, hearing Ted tell him what happened, is like, are you kidding me right now? And he's like, he drives him right away to the pond. And then Joe and Paul start diving in, trying to get to the car, trying to get to Mary Jo. They try repeatedly to save her, but their efforts were in vain. They weren't able to do it. Exhausted, all three men regrouped. They got back in the car and they drove, all three of them, to a payphone. And they stood there while Joe and Paul tried to convince Ted that he needed to pick up the phone and report the incident ASAP.
That's crazy. That's really crazy. I'm concerned at this point about what Ted Kennedy was thinking, right? And I'll tell you why. Because his nonchalant behavior makes me feel like he's counting on her being dead. Like there is no urgency anymore. He's counting on her being dead.
Well, he refused to report the incident at that time. So it appears that they had if not an argument, a disagreement, right?
Okay, so he doesn't. So he's at the and he's like, I'm not doing this.
Right.
So
They're standing at the payphone on the dock, on the ferry dock. And the two lawyers, his cousin and the other lawyer, are telling him, you need, like, as a lawyer, I'm telling you, the best thing for you to do right now is report this incident. Ted refuses. Then he dives into the water and swims to Martha's Vineyard, which is about 500 yards.
500 feet. 500 feet.
About 500 feet. Gets there, swims to Martha's Vineyard, walks to his hotel room soaking wet, and goes to bed. Goes to sleep. Goes to sleep. The next person to talk to him outside of the family was at 7:30 a.m. the next morning, when Ted has a conversation with the guy who won the sailboat race the day before, and they're just chit-chatting. And there's no sort of indication from the other person who was having this conversation with Ted that he was under any sort of stress or outward distress over anything. He was just having a conversation about the race. Interesting.
Which is, I can't even imagine the level of compartmentalizing that needs to take place.
True. At around 8 a.m. that morning, two fishermen discovered the overturned car in the pond and alerted the authorities. And divers went down and retrieved Mary Jo's body from the vehicle, and they also retrieved the vehicle. Now, Ted hears about this. And it wasn't until after he heard that his car had been found and Mary Jo's body had been recovered, then he picks up the phone and reports the accident. Actually, he goes down to the Edgerton police station and makes a written statement about what happened, but then refused to sign it.
What?
I know. Yeah. 10 hours, Jill. It had been 10 hours after the fact. And he didn't report it until it was found.
Was there an investigation into the incident, or did they, like, how, if Ted made a report but wouldn't sign it, I'm assuming the police were like, well, we should look into this.
Oh, absolutely.
So what were the results of the investigation? What did the authorities find out?
Well, there was an associate medical examiner on call because the regular medical examiner, the guy who had the full-time job, he was off that day. Talk about dodging a bullet.
Ain't that the truth?
Talk about dodging a bullet, because this associate medical examiner would be in the middle of a storm of controversy about his ruling. Okay. I wonder if the medical examiner was just like, I don't feel like going in today.
Can you imagine? Be like, hey, Mr. Medical Examiner, we found Ted Kennedy's car with a girl in it. And he was like, oh. He's like, oh man, I wish I could right now, but my stomach hurts and I'm not going to make it today.
And I need to wash my hair. And you know how long that takes.
And
Seriously.
You know how busy I've been lately. I think I'm just under the weather. You don't want what I got. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So the associate medical examiner determined that the cause of death was accidental drowning. He based this finding on the general appearance of Mary Jo's clothed body and some foam around her mouth. And then he consulted the DA's office and he's like, hey, DA's office, I don't do this stuff all the time. You know, I'm just the associate on-call medical examiner. Do I need to do an autopsy? And the DA's office told him, well, it's not necessary because there's no suspicion of foul play.
Okay, so... Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that happened. They did take a blood sample, and the blood sample indicated that she had approximately 5 drinks in the hour before she died.
Which for me wouldn't be a big deal, but for tiny, non-drinking Mary Jo Chappaquiddick, that's a significant amount of alcohol.
Right. And I would argue that that is a big deal for you, but that's a discussion to have outside.
We'll talk later. We'll talk.
Right.
Find us on Detours for that argument.
Mary Jo's body was released to her parents, and her funeral occurred 3 days later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was bam, bing, bing.
That's fast.
Pretty fast.
Right. However, there was controversy surrounding Mary Jo's cause of death soon afterward. John Farrar was the name of the captain of the fire unit, who was also the diver who went down and recovered Mary Jo's body from that submerged car. And he believed that she had died from suffocation, not accidental drowning. And this was based on how her body was found in that car. You see, she was in the well of the back seat where an air pocket had likely formed. Her body showed signs of rigor mortis, like she died in that position, clutching the back seat with her face turned upwards as if trying to breathe in an air bubble.
Oh my God, that poor.
I know. In addition, an inspector from the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles investigated the car and noted that parts of it appeared dry. So that confirmed that there must have been an air bubble, at least one, in that car. And Mary Jo, therefore, she didn't drown. She ran out of air. And Farrar, John Farrar, the diver and the captain of the fire rescue unit, boldly stated that Mary Jo might have survived if a timely rescue attempt had been made. That's not something the Kennedys want to hear right now, Mr. Farrar.
OMG.
Yeah. That changes everything.
To me, like the dicking around, like him going to sleep, him swimming back to Martha's Vineyard.
No shit.
If he just went to the nearest house, if he screamed for help.
Yeah.
She probably had like a half hour. You know what I mean?
We don't know. We do know that, yeah.
He had time to, there was time.
There was time.
There was time. We don't know how much time, but there was definite time. Oh,
all right. Man. I wanted to ask you. Now you've heard everything. You've heard.
I heard everything.
You heard everything. Mm-hmm. What do you think happened that night? Like, why do you think they left together? Do you buy Ted's story that he was just going to drive her to the ferry, or do you think?
Absolutely not.
Okay, tell me what you think happened.
Okay, so first of all, I'm a whole thing about inconsistent behaviors, and if you say, if I'm at a party where the majority of people are planning to go back somewhere, even if I'm at a party and I'm going to the store, I'm like, hey guys, does anyone need anything? This is what's happening. I'm taking her to the ferry. Does anyone else need to get on the ferry? I don't want her to leave her on the ferry alone. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, this actually looks really weird that I'm Senator Ted Kennedy going to the ferry with this young woman alone. Right.
Driving myself when I never drive.
Right. Exactly. Can someone come with me? So bad optics. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But none of that went on. So, okay, whatever. But we are in Ted Kennedy's playground.
We are.
And he must feel very insulated and safe. Safe enough to get into a car with a young woman alone and be drinking and being acting the fool, doing Congo lines. And so so there is this sense of, you can't, I don't have consequences. You can't touch me. Yeah. I'm untouchable. So I'm doing these things. You know what I mean? So I feel like that is more consistent behavior with I'm Ted Kennedy. I'm on my shit in my island with my people, and I'm doing my thing. And I feel like Mary Jo.
Why do you think she went with him?
I mean, it's just an honor. It's like going with a Beatle or Beatle adjacent. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like everyone in the country loved JFK. Mm-hmm. Everyone was destroyed when JFK died.
And then Bobby.
And then the post-traumatic stress of that, but then to have Bobby die and to really believe in the vision of Bobby and to really, Bobby was the one that shook the boat and went after people and really put his moral compass first, mm-hmm. which I would argue JFK didn't. But anyway, then Bobby's dead. And now here's Ted, this guy that's probably going to be the next president of the United States, that probably is going to have a presidential campaign that you're going to probably want to work at. Yeah. You're going to get in the car with him.
I think they were having some private moments together.
I don't know if Mary Jo signed up for the private moments together?
I think she did because she knew he was a married man, and it's already improper for her to even be alone in a vehicle with him in the middle of the night.
But
so
think
I
about
think
the
she
power
crossed that
dynamic.
line. No. I don't blame her. I do not blame her.
Okay. I'm just saying, this is my whole thing. We're already, this whole situation is already not, isn't a good idea, right? Just the boiler room, like the whole party, the fourth of its kind.
But do you think they were sleeping together? Let me just ask you.
Hold on. Wait. I'm just saying, the fourth party of its time, you're in a safe place, you're in the inner circle, and Ted Kennedy's like, hey, let's go for a drive, whatever.
Right.
I would get in the car, but not to hook up with them, but just to be like, okay, tell me, 80% of the country's waiting for you to run against Nixon. What are your plans?
Okay.
Are you going to be doing it? You know
All
what
right.
I mean?
So you really think they were just talking?
I think that Mary
five
Jo
drinks
Kopechne,
in. I don't think 5 drinks in, Mary Jo Kopechne was just talking. I'm sorry. I don't care. I was a Catholic schoolgirl too, Jill.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I feel like she could have been naive to the fact that where this was going. I don't think he raped her or anything.
Oh, no, I don't think he raped her either.
I don't think it was.
No.
I think
he
she
wouldn't have had
shocked.
to.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was shocked. Like, oh, we're going here now. Like, right. I don't think that she probably got in the vehicle with that on her mind.
You know what it obviously feels like? This power dynamic is so off. It feels like he was grooming these girls.
Exactly.
Like grooming. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. That's what my point with the 4-party thing.
Yeah. He was grooming them.
You have 4 parties
with
just these girls.
And what are you going to say?
Celebrate?
No. It's exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
A broader collection of people that were a part of the campaign.
Right. Making her feel special. Like, I don't do this with everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah,
100%. Right. So that's what I think happened. And then I think the cop, Sheriff's Deputy Look, when he was coming from the regalia and he sees the car, like Kennedy was caught with his pants down, literally. Yeah. And he was like, oh man, gig's up. I can't have an officer see me half a mile away from the cottage on this like dark road with Mary Jo Kopechne. Like, I need to get out of here. So he does that 3-point turn and then hauls ass just to get away from the cop.
Why do you think he waited 10 hours to report the incident?
To be completely honest with you, I think he was waiting for his mom to wake up. I think he was waiting to talk to his mother about it.
To find out what he should do?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he didn't sign the confession. I feel like there was a lot of I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Right. Wake up, Mom. It's before cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, that's an interesting take.
Why do you think it was 10 hours?
I think he waited until the very last minute. And once his car was found with that dead woman in it, he couldn't pretend that he wasn't involved. Up until that time, I think he really thought maybe it'll all just go away. Because
someone else would take the fall. Someone else would take the fall. Maybe Joe says he was in the car.
We don't know how many times the Kennedys made things go away when they made bad decisions. But I'm just thinking until he couldn't deny it anymore, I think that's when he finally fessed up, but not 100%. But let's keep going.
Okay, Jennifer. Was Ted held accountable for Mary Jo's death? Like you said, he put it off as much. Was he held accountable?
Well, not exactly. See, law enforcement officials in this town of Edgerton, they're not used to investigations like this. They don't handle deaths. They don't handle possible homicides, and they were not ready for the intense public scrutiny and the pressure from the public and the media. There were crowds of local people gathered and vacationers, and the news media swarmed. And law officials were also very aware that they had, quote, a tiger by the tail. everybody knew the Kennedys were powerful, rich, and connected, but this was their territory.
It's their backyard.
Mm-hmm. Ted had a literal army of people on his side. And so what he did was he retreated to the Kennedy compound at Hyannisport and met with his advisors and the family fixers to help with the legal, public, and political fallout. Ted was counseled by his lawyers to minimize the legal repercussions of the death of Mary Jo. The defense strategy was to avoid the charge of manslaughter. And so at his arraignment,
Question.
Ted admitted. Yeah.
I have a question. What is the charge of manslaughter?
I don't know. What is it?
I believe it's that someone was killed by you, but it wasn't criminally.
Like you weren't intending?
Yeah, it wasn't with criminal intent.
Okay. All right. Very good. And so that's what they were trying to avoid.
Yeah, because that would be bad.
Yeah, I would. At his arraignment, he admitted to the crime of leaving the scene of an accident that caused injury. So his lawyers argued for a suspended jail sentence, and the prosecutors agreed.
Which means...
And they highlighted...
Which means that when you have a suspended sentence, that means that even though you are charged and you are convicted of this crime and it has this amount of jail time, that time is suspended, meaning that you don't have to do that jail time. So consequences, It's on your record, but there is no time required in jail.
Exactly. And so he did serve no jail time.
So get out of free jail card.
Exactly. And by the way, that arraignment only took 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
Right. Like everybody there knew what was going to be said, knew what was going to be happen, and backdoor discussions had already occurred between the DA and the Kennedy reps, and the whole thing was a done deal.
Well, to be honest, that's really what happens in court. Like the reps,
most of the time,
they have that all figured out, and it's just the formal, like solidifying the arrangement. But what's crazy about it is that the judge went along with it, because a judge can say like, hey, this seems pretty like unfair. Like a girl lost her life and he's not even getting jail time. Do you see what I'm saying? Like a judge could have put a stop to those negotiations and been like, no, I'm not signing off on this. Go back and renegotiate.
Exactly. But on the contrary, the Judge James Boyle, said that Kennedy has, quote, already faced and will continue to face consequences far beyond that what this court can impose.
Well, it would have been nice if he tried, Judge. I mean, you know?
Right. Don't give up so easily, Judge.
I mean, come on. Isn't that like your job to like dishing out consequences?
So the PR focus was on transforming Ted then into a victim in the eyes of the people and the press. For example, they had him walking around with a neck brace on, right? He even attended Mary Jo's funeral wearing this stupid neck brace.
If you weren't already enraged, I was reading that and I'm like, that motherfucker.
Right.
Sorry, trying not to swear.
It's sending the message, oh, look, I'm a victim too.
But not only that, at the expense of her funeral and her family. They're still trying to figure out what happened.
Right. He's taking advantage of the press at the funeral.
Right.
To make a statement.
Right.
Right. Okay, Jill, this is your favorite part. He did a televised statement regarding the incident about a week after the accident. Why don't you summarize that?
Okay, so I just want to say I can't right now because I'm emotionally triggered, but I want to invite you all to meet us at Detours because we are going to play that audio, and we're going to...
Jill, don't promise that. Don't promise
Jennifer, I'm promising it.
We don't know how to do that technology.
I can do it. I can do it, Jennifer. Lord. Follow us. Detours.
Why don't you just say we can discuss it? We'll discuss it further.
Follow us, Detours.
All right. Jill's going to figure out the video editing technology and pull this off by Detours.
I'm just going to record. It's not going to be on video. Do we need it on video? Can I just have the audio playing that you and I could listen to and react to?
Oh, I thought you were going to do like the whole video thing.
No, I mean, I could if you want me to. But...
No, that's what I thought because I think he's so like... He's trying to win over the audience, and the way he holds his head and the way he looks up and gives those sincere stares. That's what makes me want to reach into the screen and choke the motherfucker.
Okay. That's fair. I like this energy you're bringing. I, too, have experienced that rage from him and this speech. It was so... Okay, so you think the reason while he is coming forward, like the assumption is, at least for me, is that he's going to have a conversation about this tragic accident, the loss of life of this
and his culpability.
Yes.
And his culpability.
And kind of like he's confessing to the nation, if not Massachusetts, and unburdening his soul with this tragedy, right? But instead, he's like, I need the people of Massachusetts to help me decide whether or not I should stay in the Senate. And you're like, what in the fuck? What are we talking about here? We're talking about the future of your political career? Oh, it's just like unbelievable. It's literally unbelievable. Again, detours. Look us up.
And afterwards, they were interviewing people on the street in Boston and were like, hey, do you think Ted should stay in the Senate? And would you vote for him again to be your senator? And the large majority said yes, he should stay in his current position, and they would vote for him again because everybody makes mistakes.
Oh, my God. Okay, I do love Boston, though. Bostonians, I see you. I feel you. I'm just saying that's a little messed up.
Okay, but they might have loved him in Massachusetts still and forgiven him, but the public opinion on the national stage, not so forgiving.
What does that mean? Tell me.
Well, that means that this whole incident, the delayed reporting, and all of the circumstances surrounding the accident destroyed any hope whatsoever of Ted entering the presidential race in 1972, like previously planned.
Oh, poor baby couldn't be president? Aw.
Yeah, still, he had a long, successful career as a senator in the state of Massachusetts until he died in 2009. In fact, at the time of his death, he was the second most senior member of the Senate.
I know. And the thing is that he, at the time of his death, he was a well-respected member of the Senate. We had different presidents speaking at his funeral, as he was called like the Lion of the Senate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. He had a great career.
Wonderful life.
Despite this.
Wonderful life.
So question for you, Jill.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Ted admitted to one crime, the crime of leaving the scene of an accident where injury happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He admitted to that crime.
Mm.
He expressed regret for that crime. Do you think there were other crimes that Ted got away with that night and that next day?
Oh my gosh, this is like crime bingo. Get out your bingo card. We have DUI, DWI. I don't even know if he had a license. He never drives. Do we know if the man has a license?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. He's parked, probably trespassing on Cemetery Row somewhere, okay? Then invading or fleeing from an officer? Dude, what you doing? Why are you fleeing from an officer? And you are driving way too fast, way too reckless for Dyke Road and Dyke Road Bridge. So yeah, I mean, we got speeding, we got running away from an officer, we got DWI, DUI, we have leaving the scene of an accident, and then just being a pussy ass mama's boy. Can we just talk about that crime? Just that crime in itself. I don't want to make the phone call. I'm gonna swim for it. Like, what? Can you imagine the look on my face if I were one of his friends? I would be like, you, what? That is like a cartoon criminal thing to do.
So people across the country had a lot of the same questions and had a lot of the same feelings and really thought that Ted got away with a lot, and they wanted an autopsy. Right? There was pressure. They're like, bring up this woman, exhume her.
Well, why did they have to
do an autopsy?
Why did they have to exhume her?
Because she was already in the ground. They buried her so fast. The family buried her 3 days later.
3 days later.
3 days after the accident.
No.
And so it was the following day, on July 22nd, the day after she was buried, the day after her funeral, that the district attorney for the Cape and the Islands requested Mary Jo's body be exhumed for the autopsy, because he was pointing to the discrepancies that we've been pointing to and the gaps in the initial examination performed by that associate medical examiner. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to address all the public concerns about the thoroughness of the investigation. So he formally asked for the body to be exhumed. He went to the judge with it.
Okay. And?
Well, interestingly enough, it was the parents of Mary Jo's parents, Joseph and Gwen Kopechny, who publicly resisted the exhuming of their daughter's body for an autopsy. And they said to the press that they wanted to avoid further distress and trauma and just wanted to put the incident behind them. And then in October of 1969, the Kopechnys filed an application to the court formally asking the DAs to request for an exhumation and autopsy be denied. So they were like formally, no, we want you to deny this request.
Wow.
And so they were never carried out. And the case remained officially closed and the cause of death listed as an accidental drowning.
I'm just so confused as to the motives of her parents.
Right. Well, the Kopechnys did receive $141,000 settlement from the Kennedy's insurance company for the accident.
I mean, I don't know how much that is today, but they lost their child.
Right. It doesn't really matter, does it?
I know, exactly.
How much. It could be any number and it's never going to bring your daughter back.
And how would you even spend that money? Like it's blood money.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I wouldn't even touch
right.
it. I would be like donating it to St. Jude's.
Right. And over time, that pain still lingered. And on the 25th anniversary of Mary Jo's death in 1994, her parents revealed that Ted Kennedy, he never personally reached out to them, never apologized to them, although other members of the Kennedy family had sent them letters. Mary Jo Kopechny's parents both passed away in nursing homes in Pennsylvania, her father in 2003 and her mother in 2007. And according to family members, they passed away with the feeling that justice had never truly been served and had regretted not having Mary Jo's body exhumed and autopsied.
Okay, Jennifer, I have so many questions for you, but let's do what we usually do. Who do you think our voiceless is? Do you think it's Mary Jo?
Well, I was thinking about that. The thing about Mary Jo is her name will forever be linked to the way she died and completely clouding or taking attention away from all of the things she was able to accomplish in her young life.
Sure.
However, she has been in the papers for over 50 years and she's been given a voice. Books have been written about her. According to Wikipedia, there's a full biography, Before Chappaquiddick, The Untold Story of Mary Jo Kopechny, just published in 2020.
Her cousin wrote a book called Our Mary Jo.
So I feel like she's had a voice. But I do have a theory.
What's your theory?
I think that not enough people look into her parents, Joseph and Gwen Kopechny.
And how they lived after they had to bury their daughter?
Well, first of all, what about the decision to bury their daughter so quickly?
Dude,
that to me is super suspicious.
We're Catholic. We are Polish Catholic. Yeah. That's like a whole thing. That's a week. That's a week, yo.
That's hard. It's hard to get done in 3 days. Yeah. Like that's.
Well, you have to. There's so much planning. Yeah. So much planning.
The church.
Right. The wake.
Yes, all of it.
Oh my God. Forget about it. You can't do that in 3 days. Who does that?
I also find curious their public response to the press supporting the cause of death as drowning and their petition to the court that Mary Jo not be exhumed and autopsied. Like they wanted to put the whole event behind them like less than a week after she died. That doesn't make any sense. And the fact that we know that later they regretted not having that autopsy performed, I think all of these details suggest that they were influenced by the Kennedy family machine.
If not pressured.
And that the Kennedy family was behind their own words and actions in the days, weeks, and months of the Chappaquiddick incident. I think they were terrified of the Kennedys.
I agree 150%. And first, I can't even imagine the phone call. Like, I'm in Pennsylvania living my life. My daughter has a wonderful career. She's on the top of her game. She's in Georgetown with her friends. And to get the phone call that your daughter's body was found in Ted Kennedy's car. Like, what are you saying? And then to have like you said, the Kennedy machine kind of swoop in at that point and kind of like nestle, like we're in this together now.
Right. This is what's going to happen. It was a terrible accident. Let us take care of it. This is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to do. Here's the money.
Exactly. It seems like our fates are now connected, and now you're a part of the Kennedy machine. Let us protect you. Let us protect you. I can feel the manipulation. Right. I can feel the confusion. Just like,
and the terror and the fear and the fear.
Like, you're not going to tell the Kennedy family, like press agent.
No, I got it.
Or like the lawyers to get the fuck out of your house. You're going to be like, what? Like, my daughter just died. Like, you would, the assumption is that they're here to help us because of this, but really they were there to put pressure to contain it.
Yes. Yes.
And I can see being blindsided by that and not being able to recognize that as her parents in the moments, because everything's happening.
Right. And to me, that sort of fear and overwhelming sense of the Kennedys' overarching power translated to me in the hits. When I was feeling that overwhelming terror of, oh my God, like, I cannot be in trouble with like, I need to follow the instructions. Like, this is their territory. I'm not getting out of this car. I'm not walking on this beach. Do you know what I mean?
I know
like,
exactly what you mean, because it was crazy. I was like, Jennifer, we're not leaving until you get out of this car.
What about the fact that we were pulled to Hyannisport and that Siri took us there? That is ridiculous.
How? Like, you guys need better security, Kennedy family. Like, really. Public service announcement. Like, Siri is giving people your address.
And then picking up on a Kennedy scandal right as we like drive onto a street with a word that there's no way you could have ever read.
There's no way I could ever write. Like that would not even make sense.
And feeling the scandal involving a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I do. Oh, man. I feel like scandal for the Kennedys, it's like, there's so many, right? Pick one. There's a scandal. There's so much mythology around the Kennedy name. But we were talking earlier today about the legacy of Chappaquiddick and the incident and Mary Jo's. And one of the things that's lasting really is the deflation of the Kennedy myth and dynasty, right? This was the end of it, that we were seeing them as people and not as this mythology, these royals of American culture, right? We were like, these are flawed people. And I think in no other way could there ever be justice for not only Mary Jo, but her parents. The only thing that I can think of that I can hold on to is that they took down that American dynasty in this way, even let it be small, but it altered American history to be complete.
It absolutely. And again, this is such a well-known incident. It was all over the national press in 1969, and America is still enthralled with the scandal and controversy and the mystery that it continues, that lingers on. There's literature, there's films, there's documentaries, there's podcasts, there's political discussions all around Chappaquiddick and this incident.
Guys, you can go into so many rabbit holes, and we've been sitting here for about an hour and 15 minutes just scratching the surface, legit rabbit holes every direction.
Exactly. We left so much out, and we know we did because our focus wasn't to do an in-depth kind of expose.
Yeah, we're not journalists.
No.
Despite of what you may think of us, we're not journalists.
But Jill, we don't usually do stories that are so well known.
True, we don't. But this July is the 55th anniversary of Mary Jo Kopechne's death. And I think, like you said, if we focus on her parents and we think about the justice that they lacked in their lifetime, if we can just give like our thoughts and prayers to how they lived out the rest of their life, right? Because without their daughter being entangled and thinking of Ted Kennedy's success, even see his ass on the news would have like broke my heart.
Yeah. So as I was doing this outline, I was asking myself, well, how can I be sure? we asked Spirit to lead us to a story that we didn't already know about, but I already knew about Chappaquiddick.
I knew about Chappaquiddick, but I couldn't read it.
So
I didn't know.
I know, Jill.
I didn't know in that sense.
Right. So I needed to be convinced. So I was like, if this is truly something that we should be talking about on Common Mystics, please let me know. And then I looked at the route that we took home. And on our way home from Providence, Rhode Island, out of all the possible routes that we could have taken to get home, we happened to drive directly past a town named Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And that is the town where their Chappaquiddick lived and where Mary Jo Chappaquiddick was born. And when I saw that, I knew that for some reason we need to retell this story.
I agree with you. And when you brought that up to me on the phone this morning, I reminded you that when we left Providence, Rhode Island, that was like our hub when we were traveling around New England.
Yep.
We were using an app to avoid traffic, and we
were rerouted.
We were rerouted around Connecticut, and it took us a different way that led us past that route. So that wasn't a planned route or a direct,
that was not planned.
Or a direct route.
Right. So anyway, there you have it. I hope we did this justice. I know this has been discussed ad nauseum. Hopefully we added a little something different to the discussion. And gosh, thank you, Boiler Girls. And thank you, Mary Jo Chappaquiddick. I'm just sorry the way it all turned out.
You know what?
For her and for her parents.
I do want to say this, though. Thank you, Boiler Girls. Thank you for everyone who has the ability to work at campaigning and to help politicians. When a politician gets elected and wins a campaign, it is not by their own efforts, but the efforts of all their staff and the people that believe in them around their voter demographic, right? So when Bobby Kennedy was winning and going on to Chicago and to win there, he was doing that on the back of the Boiler Room Girls. So just note that. And please find time in this election year to donate to a campaign or to campaign for your favorite candidates.
And vote. Go out and support your beliefs.
Civic duty. It's your civic duty.
Damn it.
Get in those lines. No, for real. It is. Be more conscious of not only the campaigns, who these people are, who they represent, but also your duty as an American citizen. Remember, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Oh, very nice. All right. Please tell the people where they can find us.
Oh, check out our website, commonmystics.net. Follow us at all our socials at Common Mystics Pod. You may have recognized that we have been kind of absent with our memes for our episode lately because we're doing an overhaul of our marketing strategies on our socials. So we have a new logo that's been trademarked that we're going to be using more on our socials. We're trying to figure out how to use it. So bear with us. We love you. Thank you for following our pages. Also, follow, download, share Common Mystics on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're hearing your favorite pods. But please, downloading and sharing us means everything. Everything.
Yes. Thank you so much. We love you. Good night.
Oh, detours. I am going to break down this speech with Ted Kennedy with my lovely sister Jennifer. Meet us there.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be great.
Bye.
Bye. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
This has been a Common Mystics Media production. Editing done by Yokai Audio, Kalamazoo, Michigan.